Welcome to our podcast. It's episode 2. We're going to be discussing why should you believe. Um, we broke up the podcast in a few questions, so I'm going to start with just disclaiming what do we mean by the question. Why should you believe? I think everyone will make an assumption as to why should you believe in a god or a religion, and that's not where we're going with this. We're going to go much more fundamental. We are going to start with why should you believe fundamentally. Why do you believe in anything you believe in, and then going into that. Okay. So first question, Jordan, you are going to be the person getting the question, and it's going to be, what is your definition of belief?
Are you reading from your tablet there?
Yes, I've got
You didn't tell me.
I've got the question there.
I'm just kidding. Why do I believe?
No.
What is my definition of belief?
What do you mean? What do you think it means? What does it imply when you say you
I
believe
think
something?
for me it's very simple. It's very close to the Google definition. To accept something as truth. So,
as truth.
yeah, obviously, because we've been having these conversations, you assume, or you see so you think there's a truth, you think there's an absolute truth, but I think what most people, the relationship that they have with the word believe, and to a certain extent mine, is what I accept as truth in my own life and on an absolute level.
I think, some people might actually say, or have a very similar definition, and to say, I believe this because I want this to be true. I believe this is true because I want it to be true. And that's dangerous. A dangerous definition of that. But for me, thanks for asking. My
Yes.
my definition, it touches that you mentioned objective truth. What is true, what is not true. I believe there is an objective truth. There is something that is real, and everything else is an opinion of what that is. So for me, when someone says they believe something to be true, or they believe in anything, it is a claim that they make that their opinion of truth, their subjective view, is the correct objective view. To give us a small example, if I say I believe and that camera is recording, I am saying that from everything I can take in reality, my perspective of reality is that I believe the objective reality is that it's recording me. It's difficult to word, because objective reality, what is the objective reality?
It also implies its existence.
It implies that it exists.
How do we know that? But yes, okay.
How do we know that? I believe that it is one, that there is one. There has to be one.
But what you've said so far, to believe is to equate your personal reality with what you think is the objective reality.
Yes. Okay. And
All
as our definitions, do you disagree? Any problems?
I think no. It's unfortunate. Part of the question, what do you think belief is as a concept, is that it's personal.
Subjective.
It's subjective, like you say, and then now you bring in objective stuff into it. It's just it's confusing to think about. But
it is.
Typically, what people also think believe is to accept as reality without all the necessary proof. I believe this is true. Or if someone says, this is true, that's objective. If they say, I believe this is true, there's an aspect of faith, I would call it, in that. There's an aspect of faith in that. So to believe something, you could also define it as a very high suspicion that it is the objective truth.
Yeah. That it's real and it's not just my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask you another question since you're here. It is, what do you think are the fundamental things to believing? What is the foundation to every choice people make to believe in something? So if I believe I'm going to believe I'm going to believe this, I'm not going to believe that, you know, what is the fundamental things that happen kind of behind the scenes, in your opinion?
So another unprepared question that I would give an answer to would be just an observation of myself. When I see something and I believe it to be true or not, has to do with my current view of reality, whether it matches with that or not. And to a large extent, whether I want it to be true or not. I think that does factor when I reflect on decisions I've made to accept certain things as reality. There's a push of, do I want this to be true or not, in trying to analyze this thing and then decide whether it's real or not, or whether it's something I am comfortable believing in and accepting as a reality in my life. So I would say those are one crucial point is, does it agree with my past, what I think about the world?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I believe it. Do I want to believe it or not? That factors in. And then I think the third point is, I can't remember what my third point was. But yeah, my main ones would really just be that, what I expect of reality and what I expect to be true based on past experiences, and what I want to be true. And when I say want to be true, I think that can be extended quite widely. Like, if I believe that God is real, I also want certain things to be true, and so I'll find reasons for that to be true. So those are the ways I would define are the main ways that I believe. What about you?
I find such a danger to have what you want to be true, to influence what you decide to believe in, because it opens the door for such selfishness in your reality. I want to believe that this girl is interested in me, so everything she does, I'm going to read into it, and it's going to become a reality that is not the object of reality, but I want it to be. And now I allow myself to live in this subjective reality. So it's such a danger, but I understand that fundamentally we all fall into that trap. We must question why we believe into something, hence the podcast, why we believe. Because if you don't question this, that's the trap. But for me, I agree, first of all.
But you say it's so dangerous. So what is your definition that doesn't include that? I'm interested.
Yes. So I'll say the first one is the same. It something that happens agrees with my perspective of reality. Ever since I was born, when something's dropped, it falls down because gravity. That's my perspective of how life works. If someone lets go of something and it shoots upwards, it doesn't agree with how I see reality. So that would cause doubt. I would find it hard to believe. So that agrees. That's the first point of yours, the exact same thing. And then the second one would be your personal experience. So through all of my senses, if I can see it, I can hear it, that gives me a lot of information to not to want to believe it, but to be more inclined to find it believable, to be objectively true. But again, that also has danger because I can be deceived by my own senses. I could hear something that didn't actually happen. I could have a screw loose or something. So only looking at that one also has its dangers. And then thirdly, it would be other people agreeing with what I already kind of think should be or is true. Because if I can see a cow walking into this room through that wall, but no one else does, yes, I can perceive it, first point. Okay, second point, it doesn't make sense. Okay, let's say it walks through the door. So it agrees with the first 2 points. I can perceive it and it makes sense in reality. But no one else sees the cow walk through the door. Then I again start doubting. So those are the 3 ones. But again, the third one has its danger. Because just because everyone says something doesn't again make it true. So I'm inclined to just say those are the 3 I try to look for at the same time when I make the decision to believe in something or not. And it does happen on a subconscious level. And I think if I don't question and if I'm not attent, I'm not actively thinking about these things, a lot of the times you end up believing something that's not true. And that's the reasons I think there's the foundational things that build up to my choice to believe in something or not.
Okay. So just so I know I have it right, it's your experience with what you think is reality, so your senses, your interaction with quote quote reality. The second one is your expectation. Your expectation of what that reality should be. And then your third one would be, do other people agree with what the first 2 points in my own little world? And I have an interesting example that I'd like to interrogate against that I just thought about now.
Perfect. Let's go.
So the example that I want you to apply that to, and it's a funny example, everyone's seen it. There's this prank that you do on people where you attempt a magic act. It's you have someone in a chair, and then you put a blanket over them, and then you take the blanket off and you say, hey guys, he's disappeared now. And everyone's in on it. So the person in the chair is still there. You've seen it.
Yes.
And they well, I can see everyone. I can see myself. I can see myself in the mirror. I can see myself in the reflection. But no one else can see me. And in that moment, you know to yourself that I'm here. I can see myself. The reflection is there. And they even take a photo that they used beforehand to confirm the reality. Just to prove to that person that even though you feel it and you know it and you experience it, if everyone else doesn't, you need to start accepting this reality. So most people in that situation start to accept the new reality. I almost feel as though that point in terms of what we all do is more important than the other 2. So if you're sitting by yourself, you only have the first 2, which is what you can feel, what you can see, and what you expect. But when you're around other people, the third one trumps the other 2. If you say things to your friends, I feel this way, they're like, no, that's not real, and this is not real, and let me show you and prove to you why. And you're like, oh yeah, no, maybe that's not what I believe anymore. And so you place so much importance on that third point, which doesn't disagree with you, but it overemphasizes the third one.
It does. I agree. It has so much of an impact on a person, but that's the big danger of it, and I think it stemmed from fear of man, almost kind of thing. You fear that you are going to be, well, in that example, I don't think you can fear anything because you've now ceased to exist, by everyone else's perspective.
Yeah.
But in the concept of, a simple example I like to chat to people about, if everyone in the world agrees that apples are now oranges, does that make an apple an orange? It does not.
It only does not in the worldview of an objective truth.
Okay.
If you take yourself outside of the worldview of an objective truth becomes what we all believe.
Okay.
Obviously, if you apply that to maths now, it's so difficult because it is people see it as an expression of objective truth, that 2 + 2 is equal to 4 because it's a physical reality. But if everyone agrees on something, oftentimes that becomes truth. And you see that in today's society.
I agree. The only person then, if my example were to actually take place, The only reason I believe it wouldn't be true then is because God would still know that it is,
Exactly.
and would still enforce the existence of an apple to be an apple. So I guess, yes, I'm stuck in a perspective of the fact that there is, or I believe that there is a objective truth. But I, like as you mentioned, there are laws that are true and real in our world, like the law of gravity. It cannot be disproven. It is objectively true, no matter what the perspective, no matter what people want it to be, no matter how many people say something else. It exists because it exists. And I have not a theory, but I believe that God created the world in such a way where it was a necessity to imprint some objective truth constants which people could not affect, that then would make life possible. It would not just be chaos. If God created and it was just chaos, then yes, maybe objective truth doesn't make sense. But because of creation, because of physical laws, because of all of that, I have to and can no otherwise believe that there is not an objective truth. But I understand it's my perspective, but I have to.
But let's
It's
take
how I make sense of reality.
that's and I've heard that argument before. You know, the one for objective truth. But taking a step back, how do you, or what's important? Why do you need to understand? Now we've discussed something for quite a substantial part of this
Yeah.
podcast. Who cares about the way you believe? Why is it important?
Okay, yes, that is actually my next question. How did you know? So yes, the next question is how why it's important to understand belief, and I have a simple answer. It is to prevent yourself from being deceived. Why should I understand why I believe in something? It's so that I can question it. Why should I question it? To make sure that it is real and it's not just my opinion or what I want it to be or what other people tell me it is. I want it to be real in the way that God created it to be. Like when I pursue to know God, I don't want to know God the way other people know him or tell me he is. I want to know him how he wants to be known, who he is. So that's my simple, straightforward answer. It is to prevent deception, and that is why it is so fundamentally important to question your perspective on things. What is
So-
your
Just if I could understand you properly there, it seems like it's so that you can be consistent and therefore avoid deception. So you're not changing the rules every time for what you accept to be true. You accept that this is my initial assumption. That's how I'm going to judge the world. Let me consistently do that so I can be a consistent man.
Yeah, and it prevents you from becoming your own God who defines rules and laws however you want and how you see fit. It is I must be able to be admitting when I'm wrong as well. And if I'm creating a subjective reality where I'm playing God to what I want to be true or not true, I will never admit that I'm wrong, because who wants to be wrong? So there's so much danger when it comes to that. So yeah, but why do you think it's important to believe?
So the way that you answered the question was interesting because you took it to a level where you practice it on a daily basis and identified something that could go wrong if you change the rules. And that's the way that you justified the importance of understanding why you believe. For me, it's not really, I didn't really use that train of thought. For me, the importance of belief to understand comes from a realization of how much you believe and how much you use your belief on a daily and minute and hour basis.
Something just seems off about that. But yeah, I'll have to go think about that. I think you should question that perspective.
Let me explain it a bit
Yes,
more.
please do.
So, whatever decision you make in life, not decision. Okay, let's go with decision. Whatever decision, action, whatever you do in your life is ultimately based on a belief. So, I started to think about this when I had I don't know, I feel like I never really had difficult decisions in life when I was younger, because my parents, they kind of take the forefront of the way you're supposed to think about decisions that you make. And so you just kind of adopt that same logic and you apply it to your life, and that's success for you as a kid when making decisions. And also when you're a kid, it depends on what you want and you try and choose that as well. So then now when I grew up a bit, and I had the opportunity to think for myself, and I started thinking for myself, all the decisions I would have to make, I'd think to myself, okay, I have this tough decision to make. I have two options. Which option am I going to choose? And whenever I said, okay, I'm going to choose this option because of this, okay, but why do I feel that's important? Well, it's because of this. Well, why do I feel that's important? It's because of this. And then ultimately, every time you do that, you get to the point where you say, oh, it's because I believe in this. And that usually comes to believing in God, believing that something is important in your life, which is based on a belief about the world. So there's a worldview or a belief behind every decision and action you make. And realizing that, and realizing how much you use belief in your life, calls for an introspection into, okay, but what are my rules for what I believe on a daily basis? And for me, it doesn't answer the question how to believe, but it says go and look at why you believe or how you believe and what your rules are for when you believe on a daily basis. That's why I think it's important.
Okay, I understand you. I thank you. But I'm going to go on to the last question, which is the purpose of this podcast. The ultimate question we've been building up to: why should you believe?
So I think I can have a very short answer to this, and it's because very much the previous logic that I've used about why it's so important to understand what you believe in or how you believe can be used to answer the question, why should you believe? Because every choice you make has, in its deepest point, a belief behind it, and a worldview, and a way that you think things should be. So a belief. You cannot escape believing. So the answer to the question, why should you believe, is because you have no other option but to believe. You have a choice in what you want to believe in, but even if you think, well, I'm not going to believe in anything here, it is a belief in itself, and it is an acceptance of a certain worldview, an acceptance of a way that things should be. So you have no option but to believe. You cannot escape it.
Okay.
That's my answer. Yours.
So I think you stole my answer.
I read your notes.
But yes, I was explaining this to I was thinking out loud with my sister this weekend, and I was saying, behind every decision, there's three factors, which is evidence, faith, or your belief, and doubt. And I was saying, every time you make a decision, there's a certain amount of evidence that you have towards your decision, a certain amount of faith you have then to make up for that, because nothing can be proven in life. Nothing can be 100% sure. You cannot be 100% sure about anything. I cannot be 100% sure you're sitting here and I'm not dreaming this. I cannot. It would be pride to claim to know 100% what the truth is.
Yep.
This is why I also try to practice when I say stuff like, I believe this, and I don't say, this is how it is, because that would be a truth claim. That would be me claiming to know what the objective truth is, which I believe only God fully and ultimately can do. So when I was explaining this to my sister, I realized, wait a minute, but the evidence is something in which I must believe, because evidence can be written evidence, it could be someone first eyewitness. I still need to believe in them. And then I was like, okay, well then you only have belief and doubt left. And if I make a decision when I have more belief than I have doubt, then I'm going to probably make the decision. But if there's more doubt, I'll probably not make the decision. But then I realized the doubt I have is me believing that certain outcome will not be to my benefit. I will be doubting based on my belief, on my perspective of my reality. So then I have belief in my doubt.
Okay.
And then I'm 100% belief in behind every decision I make.
see.
So once again, you cannot escape it, because fundamentally, belief is within everything, because nothing is 100% proven for us being people who have subjective perspectives. And that's why I think why you should believe. It's literally because you cannot not believe. And people who fool themselves to say, well, I don't believe in anything, believe that they don't believe in anything. So it's a juxtaposition. It's a contradiction. It cannot exist. It does not make sense from my perspective.
No, it's very interesting what you've done there. You've looked at an observation of yourself, and perhaps an observation of what you think you should be doing when you make a decision, and saying, well, I look at what I believe, I look at the evidence, and then, I kind of tried to make a decision. I think there was a third one as well. But then you've looked at all of those and said, well, I have to have faith, or I have to have belief in each of those aspects of my decision-making process, like evidence. You have to think, well, how do we know that evidence is objective and an objective truth? So you have to question everything, and in a sense, you have to believe everything to be true to make up your answer. So hence, you have to believe. You cannot escape believing. And I think what I like about that is it calls for an introspection into, how do I believe? And I think some people think they can't believe. I mean, they don't want to believe. Some people think they have the option to do that. No, I don't want to believe. And it's nice that it addresses that you do not have an option. In your decision to say, I do not believe, comes an acceptance of some reality, which is belief. So,
Yeah.
that answers the question.
That answers the question, guys. And
One thing I would like
Yes.
to do is
yes, we've had questions.
this is coffee. People have been asking what it is.
They think we only have props. This is real coffee. And I think this has been like a 30-minute episode so far. It's not hot anymore.
Hey,
But
not
there's
nice.
still coffee. There's still coffee.
You've been talking too much, man. Mine is late. All right.
That's what you believe.
Okay, I think we can end it there.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.